one of the goals for Trek was to be able to invite everyone in the stake of that age who wanted to go, regardless of their abilities.
It was my greatest impression that all of our kids should be invited to go on Trek if they wanted to go, regardless of their need for adaptation.
Trailblazers is a program that was in place for some time before Trek actually happened. And so we have the kids who have different needs. They met on Thursdays, and we had buddies throughout the entire state that were assigned to, well, they started off being assigned, but it ended up being more, they just truly were buddies.
We didn't know what we were going into. We had people with varying disabilities. The 6 that went on Trek, they all had different disabilities. We had 2 with Down syndrome, 1 with autism, 1 with cerebral palsy, and 1 with floating harbor syndrome, and 1 who had vision issues, who was nearly blind. So they all had different disabilities, they all had different needs, and no one had ever done this before.
When I first heard about it, I really felt that it was inspired.
When we first proposed it to them, I think they thought we were a little off.
I think families that have kids that have special needs are used to fighting for everything they have and being disappointed. And I think they're also apprehensive about the safety of their children. And so it took some time to get the trust of those families, and I don't blame them at all.
I wasn't concerned that they were coming. I was grateful they were, because I thought, it wouldn't be fair to leave anyone out. If you're able to come, we want you to come.
They can do hard things just as much as we can, and they can pull through just as much as we can. Just because they have special needs doesn't mean that they have to opt out of everything. Because even though the trek is really extreme, maybe they wanted to do it too.
Life is a spiritually and mentally and physically demanding experience for these kids every day of their life.
I loved it. I know Colton personally, and then my son Dimitri works, he's a mentor with the Trailblazers, and so I think it's awesome because if you don't know someone on a personal level, you don't know that they're real.
And as it turned out, all my fears were unfounded. They all had an adult shadow that were not to be intrusive into their experience, but were always to be watchful for their medical needs or their attention needs. We had medical people on the trail and medical people at base camp. We knew where all the emergency medical places were that were within a reasonable distance from us.
And we came up with vehicles to support them. We came up with support staff. People started coming out of the woodwork that wanted to help our Trailblazers make a successful situation. And it's that community effort that made it a success.
So we had 6 of our Trailblazers able to be on Trek.
In this situation, they were in an atmosphere of love and support and inclusion. And they became a part of the situation instead of an observer to a situation. We never had an opportunity where we had to have the Trailblazers pushed or pulled by an adult because the youth stepped forward in droves to help their brothers and sisters with disabilities.
And Colton couldn't walk, he couldn't talk. And Colton, I think, changed my life because at first I didn't know who he was. I'd seen him before, but I didn't really know him personally at all. And when the first night, when we had family time, he was talking and smiling, and Ryan and Zach were introducing him to us, and I had a change of heart.
But they have the same spirit that everybody else does. And they grow up in primary singing the same songs, hearing the same stories. They want to be like everybody else. And the whole success I saw in Trek was the fact that they were not just included, they were involved.
Monday, we all met in Eugene, and we got packed up in the cars and started heading to Washington.
You guys are all going to help them with the things that you learned that they weren't in on.
They got called on Friday.
So it's not that hard. You can do this. And some of you got an email with a lot of stuff on it, and it was a lot to take in. Don't worry about that. Those are just, as those of you who went to Trek last time know, things change every minute, don't they, Tony?
There is no water until you get to the top of the hard rope pole.
Okay, there, then
But
second
now we
day.
have two of the big jugs instead of the one
And that's
we
why
had
we
last
want you to make sure that they fill their bottles here.
Because they'll have them on the back of their...
Right.
Yes. If you'll listen, yay, here we are. The moment you've been waiting for. We're going to ask that you be ready and willing to be in these families. Last time, lots of people didn't know each other, but they loved and knew each other by the end of this trek. So, I'm going to read the captain, and then I'm going to read the Ma and Pa. They're going to come up here. They're going to grab the first flag. They're just going to go right down. No choosing colors.
Lunas.
They just call your name as Ma and Pa. You run up to the front and they just call kids' names. And you're like, hey, welcome to the family.
This is the Moss family. Mosses, step up.
There's some anticipation, some fear, just
you don't know what's going to happen. These are the people that you're going to be spending a week with. They could either be great, they could be not so great, you don't know. But that's what makes it really exciting.
I was excited to see what family I was in, and when they called out who was in my family, I was just like, you know, that feels right. It's going to be a good family.
Kyle Wilcox, Natalie Peterson, Andreas Weidenberg, I guess it's Jessica Phelps, Tanner Barth, Ian Bonine, Camryn Hopkins.
We're put in these families to balance each other out. The big thing, Heavenly Father told these directors, this is a family that needs to be put together because our strengths make us able to pull this car throughout this trek. It was nice to see where my friends and my sister was going, where I was going, and it was really unique to see all these characteristics bind together as one.
Leah Alpers, Leilani Walker, Nick Garapi, Chandler Gardner, Jackson Kuykendall.
At first, people were a little bit intimidated, just like always, but it didn't take very long.
I knew most of my family. I mostly knew most of my family, I guess.
We bonded pretty well as a family. We laughed a lot together. We had a lot of fun.
We had kids that were 12 years old. We had kids that were 18 years old. And they came from all different backgrounds. And me and Darren, we had never met any of these kids ever.
I was like, I don't know about these guys. Because Tyler Allger was in my family, so I was like, okay, I kind of feel comfortable. But everybody else, I was like,
Where we would just talk and then it would become like jokes and ridiculous songs. And
you know, we sat around, I guess you could say sat around the campfire. There wasn't a campfire. We just put our buckets in a ring.
You know, we just talked about stuff. We did the 2 truths and a lie that they told us to do. Just had family time and talked and joked and laughed.
We immediately became like actual sisters, and I thought that was really cool.
Well, I recognized 2 people. I didn't really know them that well. And I don't really like meeting new people very much, and so it was kind of hard for me.
From the time they were assigned as families, they became a family, and they started to work as a family. That's the amazing experience of Trek. Some of these people you never even knew before, but through Trek, you bond together. You develop a unity and love for one another, and the experience that you share further bonds you and helps you to work together and to come together truly as a family. And they did. They did.
we were just weird, and so weird people bond.
Tyrel Williams, okay. Abigail Williams. Sissy, did you hear that right? You know, kind of cleaning out my ears, and she was like, okay.
We had inadvertently put two kids in the same family that shouldn't have been in the same family.
I don't know how we missed it. 3-4 times we went through the names and we ended up putting them in the same family.
Due to an injury I received back in February, I wasn't allowed to touch or push or even really look at a handcart. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna be a burden. I'm gonna, somewhat strong looking. I hope people look at me like that. 16-year-old, I'm gonna be put in this family, and they're like, all right, because, when you get an older guy, you're excited, but no, I can't touch a cart. I'm the big brother with a sister who just had spinal fusion back in October. I'm kind of like, I don't want you doing anything that involves 500-pound handcarts rolling over dusty hills and pushing and exerting herself when she really hasn't done anything since then. And
we walked out to talk to the families. We had taken the paw of one of the families aside and said, can we adjust and pull one of your kids out? You need to decide who it might be. But the kids looked at us and said, we love each other, we've bonded, we don't want to have anybody out, but I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll watch over that family, and we'll send somebody, we'll take care of them. We'll send people over to help them. And we'll be kind of two families together and travel together and make sure that they won't be alone.
We had already had family bonding time that thing, yeah. And then we like already kind of knew each other. It's like, oh, you're not going to be my sibling anymore. Bye, have fun. So it's like, no.
She was like, are you sure you're up to this? And, like, do you guys want to be in the same family? Because we can move you right now. Abby and I looked at each other and I'm like, I mean, we can stay together. It's no big problem.
So those two families took care of each other the whole trek. Within an hour, they had all decided that that's where they wanted to be. They were together in this, and they didn't want to change.
We realized that through the process of putting them into that family, there was some guidance there. And the Lord had his hand in who he placed.
So after we got into our families that we were assigned to, we sat down at a fireside where the stake president spoke to us.
I knew that for some of them, it was going to perhaps be a little bit harder than what they thought. And that life is full of hard things. Trek would be one of those things. But it's one of those things that you have to experience to really be able to understand. You have to go through it, and that's just like life. Life was like Trek in a way. You have to experience it to learn from it.
Praying for no rain. No rain, please, at least not while we're sleeping.
Because my wife's like, they need a poncho. I said, no, they don't need a poncho. Don't, you're just adding more stuff. They don't need that stuff. Yeah, and I remember my daughter's thinking a poncho would have probably been nice, so.
It started sprinkling, and I was like, oh, it's nice, you know. My sleeping bag's waterproof. It'll protect me. No.
I heard it pitter-pattering, so I'm like, okay, it'll, you know, just a couple drops. It'll be fine.
But then it got harder and harder.
And just waiting, it's gonna stop, right? It's gonna stop.
And we found that some of our family members could sleep through whatever. Getting wet, they didn't care. They were sleeping and comfortable.
All the girls in the tarp, but they couldn't get me to wake up. I was dead, and so they just folded my tarp over me, kind of left me there.
Like, my only tarp was the one that was underneath me, and it wasn't big enough to fit over me or anything. So I was pretty much planning on just sitting it out and hoping I didn't wake up completely drenched. But then, in the middle of the night, my paw got up and pulled out an extra tarp that he had and threw it over me.
I think what the rain did is it just added a little bit of chaos, whereas it wasn't as structured, and you didn't know when it was going to come, you didn't know what to do with it, and a lot of people got caught off guard.
What was cool is being able to see different fathers, different families doing their huddles and taking care of their families, even at early hours of the morning.
We were taking care of our families. It was, you know, what would we do as a parent? You know, you want to keep your children safe and warm, and so we just kind of started taking the role right there. You know, because we were entrusted with these, you know, children to be ours.
I was expecting all the kids to be grumpy when all of us got like a half an hour of sleep that night because it was just pouring and we were soaked. I woke up in a puddle. Most of my kids woke up in a puddle, even though we were all covered in tarps. And everybody was up, dressed, before Reveille even came, and everybody was laughing about it.
We definitely learned how to build good shelters after that.
We got to load the cart, and it looks a lot easier in the movies. To try to get everything to stay on there and strap it in. The first time took a long time.
At first it was kind of like, I don't know, how are we gonna get all this stuff into the cart?
We just kind of awkwardly put everything in there. It took a while.
We had this one girl in our group, Morgan, who was just incredibly good at packing. So we pretty much put her in charge of organizing all of our buckets and stuff to make it all fit.
Which I thought was crazy that everything was just gonna fall out, but it fit somehow, just magically.
Where are we going? That was the first approach. But then I quickly knew and quickly saw and quickly remembered.
We had a short morning meeting, and then it was time to head out.
My family was actually the first ones out the gate. We were the first ones out, first company, first family. So we were just, super excited, super energized. We were just running ahead of everyone.
Great!
We didn't really have it organized. We just said, I'll be in the front, you want to be in the middle? Okay, I'll be on the side then. I'll just walk back here watching.
Like I preferred being in the front. I saw where I was going. I had a little bit more strength and hold onto the cart. As to my siblings, they preferred being the back and pushing. So, the first step was figuring out where our strengths were in our family, so.
One of the younger kids, like, oh, I'm gonna push up here, which didn't really work out because it's in the front and it didn't work as well.
The first day, we started off coming out of base camp, and there was a big, steep hill that we first had to go out of, and it was kind of a rough hill.
Well, like, first 20 feet, I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad, and then we started going up the hill, and I'm like, I can still keep going, we're going, and then we hit this really sandy spot, and I'm like, I can't get it up the hill, what the heck?
That first hill, we started going up it, and it was not what I expected. It was, but it wasn't. My legs started burning. I thought, what in the heck did I get myself into?
I remember our kids, after that hill, they were rearing to go, and they were still going strong, and I remember thinking, we're going to be okay.
The first day, we were moving really fast, and so we would all get annoyed when, the group had to stop, and we'd all stop, and we'd be like, well, this is our jam, we're all pumped up and ready to go, and we have to stop again and start up again.
At first, you could tell they were a little surprised with how heavy the handcart was. You know, it's heavy. It's got cooking gear. It's got the buckets. You don't realize how much they add up. So they were a little shocked at first.
For the first day, I was certain they were trying to kill us, and wondering about the sanity of those that had gone before, and then to come back and to do it again.
Most of the bonding happens when they're pushing, to be honest, pushing and pulling. That's when they start talking and getting to know each other better. And I love listening to the conversations there when they're like, you know, on the back pushing, and you can just hear them start talking about everyday stuff.
I was in the middle, and Ryan Davis was next to me, and I was like barely pulling. Well, I felt like I was pulling a lot, and Ryan is huffing and puffing like, oh, and I'm like, am I pulling hard enough?
I think the hard part comes after a little while, where they realize that this is work and they've been going, and so I think that most of the difficulty then comes into keeping people motivated.
And they talk to me and walk right beside me, saying I can do this, and
I get to walk up and down the trail. It's a very unique perspective as the trail boss. I'm not with an individual family, I'm not on a cart, I'm not in an individual company. I get to see the whole entire trek, everybody who was out there.
As the day progressed, you know, as your family starts bonding and, you know, they start working together, it was more, you know, it started feeling more real. Here we were total strangers, and now we're working together as a family for the common goal, and that was, you know, to get to the end of our trek.
We were all pretty much starving, I think, at that point. I know I was. Everyone was saying, how long is it until lunch?
Everyone was sweating a lot. Everyone had already been chafing and were in pain.
We set up our shelter with another family, actually. We stretched tarps in between our two handcarts, and we all just shared the shade and made our own lunches.
This first day at lunch, I felt that we were mostly just coming to grips with the experience of trek. We've done a little bit of the pulling. We've gotten over that like early enthusiasm. We're realizing that it's work and we're getting set into it.
We were in good shape. We were in great shape. We were well hydrated. The weather cooperated much, much better. Everybody was in good spirits. It was fantastic. Totally different. Completely different. And we knew that we would make it, and we knew that we'd make it and do well.
After lunch on Tuesday, we had a big hill we had to pull up.
That first, it was such a hard, sandy push up the hill. And it was amazing to hear the kids encourage each other and just take care of it. I mean, it was, come on guys, we can do this.
that was when we realized, A, that pulling a handcart through sand is way harder than pulling a handcart through anything else. And B, it was definitely, we had to work together, we were all pulling. If anyone stopped pulling, it became that much harder on everyone else.
Vignettes along the way. Trek wasn't just about walking along the trail. Anyone can hike, but Trek was about the experience, and part of that experience was more of a spiritual experience of what the pioneers actually went through.
Taking it out of the books and putting it live kind of in your face and having the spirit there to bear witness that these things were true. Those were powerful.
We got there, I was like, oh, that's not as bad as it seems. And so then we kind of wandered down into the little valley area before we went up. And so then President Knapp explained it to us and was talking about how if it comes loose, we just got to jump out of the way. And I was like, I don't want to jump, that's a steep hill. I don't want to jump down that.
When I saw that hill,
at first I was like, do we have to pull the handcart up there, or what's going on?
How am I gonna get up this? They expect me to pull a handcart that's 200 pounds up this hill.
Well, it's pretty intimidating. You look at it from far away and you think, wow, that's not too bad. You stand at the bottom of that baby and you're like, that's up there. That's a ways up there.
It makes you wonder what happens if your handcart's the first one to go over the edge and everything were to go out.
Because it's just huge hill, and these 200-pound carts are being hoisted up. Don't you think that's nuts?
You tie a rope to the handcart on the bottom, and then you have two people inside the front of the handcart, and then everybody else, we all work together, pulls the rope as the two people push the handcart up.
You have to hold on to the rope and walk with it, just help it. And everyone's on the rope, so it's not that hard. You're probably carrying 2 or 3 pounds.
If you put them on here or here, they slip. So you have to have them around there.
Okay. Pull.
Your job is just to steady that handcart.
I think it was easy just because there were so many people up there pulling it, so many hands make for light work.
I discussed it and went back to company and talked to my mom, and I'm like, I can't push a hand cart, but do you think I'd be able to stand, my actual mom, and stand at the top and pull? And she's like, that's not breaking any of the doctor's rules. I don't see why not. So I was like, okay, I can do something. All right, let's go. We had a bar at the top by the post that held the rope up. And so I got to stand at the top. We found something that I could do, and I could hold that. And I held that the whole time for every cart.
We were moving fast enough that any sort of little deviation would have it turn off, and so we had people shouting at us from the top and the bottom to watch out for the post and to make sure we keep it straight. And it was crazy, but we got it okay.
Because I could hear my dad up there, oh, and then everyone would run with this rope.
When I got to the top, it was amazing to see that many kids pulling on that rope. That was really cool.
Seeing like that everyone was working, it like kind of touched me, and seeing that like a whole bunch of people could work as a family.
You couldn't help but think about the analogies with life. To say, wow, okay, here we are. We're at a point where we have to do some hard things, some really hard things, and we need help. And it's funny and just perhaps not coincidental that the help in life and the help on that hill comes from above.
I just can't imagine having to do that without the rope. I mean, because the pioneers didn't have that long rope, I don't think. That's the longest rope I ever seen.
Comfortable. We're talking to each other. We're communicating about who's doing what for dinner, who's setting out beds and stuff.
I was really surprised at how tired I was.
Got there, we just like spread a tarp out, put our bedding stuff on, and we all just kind of laid there. A few of us fell asleep, and so then Mom and Pa came in. They were like, "Hey guys, we have to get up. We have to cook dinner at some point." And so everyone was like, "Yeah, I don't want to get up."
Everybody was in great shape. Everybody was in good spirits, wonderful shape, pretty enthused, feeling pretty accomplished about what they'd done during that day. And saying, some of them even said, "That's it? That's it?" I said, "Yeah, that's it. You guys hiked it quite a ways."
The sunset was beautiful, and we were watching it, and Brother Knapp when we had the fireside was saying, I don't care if you're not listening to me because the sunset is really beautiful and I know you guys probably want to watch it.
We were happy that we could actually sleep underneath the stars and that it wasn't going to rain. That night we all kind of like, before we all went to bed, all the kids just kind of like got together and were like stargazing. And we were just kind of talking and it was fun.
Everyone woke up at like 5 and we didn't even have to leave until later, and so that was kind of like, I could have slept another hour, but.
The captains called us all together to deliver our breakfast.
And he told us about the Martin Handcart Company and how they woke up on that fateful morning with all they had left was, I think it was a quarter cup of flour per person. And he handed us these little bags with a quarter cup of flour. And then he handed us a biscuit saying, this is about what you could make with it. And that was our breakfast.
Just a biscuit.
They gave us a biscuit and was like, are we supposed to eat it or save it or what? Is this like my whole entire day's worth of food? Then I just ate it. I didn't care what happened.
It definitely brought to mind the possibility that we wouldn't be getting lunch or even dinner that day. That was what was more worrying to me than the fact that we had a very light breakfast. Very light breakfast.
I was actually surprised. We got the flour and I'm like, oh, okay, we're not gonna get anything. I'm cool with that. I had the biscuit and I actually felt pretty full. I'm like, oh, okay.
I think the most touching experience for me was when we had Lowden was asked to give the prayer over the biscuit and to hear the expressions of gratitude for being on trek as well as for the biscuit that we had been provided, realizing that not all the time did the pioneers have food.
We were expecting to see some weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth, and there was none. There was none. They said, great, that's great, let's go. What positive attitudes they had. I was amazed. I was very, very pleased.
It was really great, especially when we had Ephraim Hanks come up on his ATV.
We're being rescued.
Look at this, Steve. Ephraim Hanks was one of the rescuers who was sent to go find the Martin Handcart Company, and how he had been inspired to shoot, I think it was 2 or 3 buffalo on his way there and carry the meat and the coats with him. So by the time he found them, freezing and starving, he had all of this buffalo meat and all of this fur that he could just hand out, and everyone could eat, and they could get these furs wrapped around them to keep them warm. And it was just a huge blessing to the people in the company. And our Ephraim Hanks passed out some cherries and buffalo jerky and sent us on our way.
Those are probably some of the best cherries I'd ever had. They were nice and cold, and after not having eaten anything, that was pretty amazing.
Like, okay, there are people down the road that have more stuff. I wasn't really expecting like a full meal. I was like, oh, they're gonna have like grapes or something. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, they have a whole meal. Great, that's even better.
And so then there was the breakfast burritos and the orange juice and the grass to sit on. It was a pleasant surprise. I was tickled.
I was really surprised. I was like, wait, we took a detour for food? Worth it.
What a change to have a nice green grass to sit on and a delicious breakfast.
Every single person in my group I knew was working hard to get our family where it needed to go every day.
There was like another hill that we had to go up, but it was more subtle, but still really steep, and it took a long time. And so every 5 minutes we're like, water break, water break.
Wanted me to rehydrate every day and drink water.
Aaron was always in front of our hand cart, so he always led our hand cart, and it was fun to just sit or to walk with him and hold his hand, because he always did better when he was holding two people's hands to kind of keep him going. And it was fun to talk with him, and we'd set little goals for him. Let's make it to that tower, let's make it to that tree, and he was always so excited when he would reach his goal.
We pulled so fast that we beat the trucks to lunch, so the young men decided to get the full experience and try some grasshoppers instead.
I'm telling you, cut off the head. Cut off the head, dude. You're gonna get sick from that or something.
Yeah, because all the bad stuff's in the head.
Is it really? Alright, we are eating grasshoppers like the pioneers may have had to do. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
That's so
Oh
ew,
my
ew.
god. Oh my god.
Ew.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Do that.
Did you swallow yours at all? I got a leg.
So gross.
Did it taste like a Kit Kat?
Alright.
Oh, it's moving.
Oh, please.
Are you gonna chew the entire thing?
Yeah, you have to.
Take them down, take them down.
Alright.
3 bites.
1, 2, 3. Oh!
What the heck?
Not if you chew it well enough. All right, this is the.
Yeah.
gosh. Take your hat off. Oh, I heard a crunch.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my. I'm gonna puke.
I guess like Marie Antoinette, let them eat grasshoppers. They can eat whatever they want. They don't taste particularly good. But if they wanted that experience, sure, let them have it.
As we left from lunch, no one could imagine what was waiting for us.
I had learned that the pioneers, one of the hardest things to go through was sand. And I was like, oh yeah, tires get sucked in. Then you're pulling over miles and miles of sand.
It just like digs into the sand and it's like super hard to push. It was horrible.
Sand, not something you want to push a handcart through. We learned real quick.
I don't like sand as much as I used to now.
That was one where we definitely had angels helping us. As I said, I was the heaviest one in our group, being able to pull. So it was scary. To be honest, I was worried. Praying as I went down, holding on to this thing with everything I had. Please don't let us lose control of this, and please let no one get hurt. It was really shocking because half the time you couldn't see because the dust that was being kicked up from all the silt that we were going through. I think that was the hardest part for me on that trek.
It's almost impossible to get it up, and it's almost impossible to keep it from rolling right on down when you're going downhill.
That was a roller coaster ride for me there. After I got to the heat exhaustion starting, I cooled down, got feeling better, and then one of my daughters started feeling sick and couldn't go on for a while, and it was really scary and sad. But it was still worried as a parent because you didn't know how she was doing back at camp. Base camp, was she doing okay? Or because you didn't get, you didn't have your phones just to talk. So as a parent, I was feeling really concerned.
It was a wonderful little clearing in front of a little part of the river, violin playing down there, almost a reverent feeling as we went down there and gathered around that water crossing. And then we heard stories about the pioneers crossing waterways and rivers and things, and how they were carried across in certain areas, and how they received help from other people to help them get across the rivers or water crossings.
symbolism of what it must have felt like. I mean, we were dirty, we were tired, our feet were sore, and to imagine having to cross a freezing river with ice chunks and having to do it over and over again, which some of those young men did, I think it was easier to visualize.
You know, it's hard to, you know, imagine what it would have been like with the water, you know, having chunks of ice and that floating in it. We looked at it as a kind of a nice break and refreshing, whereas I think the handcart pioneers, especially in the Martin Willie handcarts, where they looked at it almost as a death sentence, realizing that each time that they would cross the river that so many more would die of exertion.
I just think we were humbled enough at the end of day 2 that really it was something that we could personally experience. We were ready for that experience by the end.
I felt that it hit you a lot harder this time, that you were going through something and it was a barrier, and that you would feel the effects of that throughout the rest of the day.
To run across it, and so we had like water splashing up.
We started out across the water, and it was the angels pushing from behind, I think. I'm not sure. All I know is we hit the water, and the next thing I know, we were going down.
Oh my god.
And you know, as I hit the water, my first concern was everybody all right? You know, and after that, it was kind of funny. We could laugh at it, but yeah, that was a pretty good wipeout.
After the water pull, we ended up pulling our carts to the beginning of this path that was titled Rocky Ridge. It was pretty hard. We came up this hill, kind of weaved in and out. The path was covered in these bumpy rocks, and it was pretty steep, and it was pretty hard to pull on.
Honestly, I thought it was going to be a lot shorter than it actually was. It looked like it was just a mile away, but it took a long time. None of us actually had bad attitudes. I was surprised because I knew everyone was thinking it. You could see it in their faces. Just like, ugh.
It was definitely, up to that point, the most physical Trek has been. There were moments where it was really hard, but that was the most consistent it had been to, we're going, we have to keep going, we can't stop.
after we wrecked on the water crossing, we were going out again up the hill to our, the camp, and I had another daughter get sick that we had to call in help for. And as a parent, losing two of your girls in the same afternoon was really emotional for me. And but I was just thankful that we were there with priesthood brother. And
I didn't realize, I guess, how strenuous it was for myself, but we're grateful to make it to the top. It just was a steady pull for, I'm guessing it probably was a good hour and a half potentially, as we were pushing up that hill. To rest and to sit down, and it was at that point that my body just said enough was enough, and I sat down, and at that point then just laid myself down, and my body said, that's as far as you're going right now. Two brethren came and gave me a blessing and promised me that I'd be able to continue on the trek, which at that point I wasn't quite sure that would be a possibility.
I realized that, hey, we're going to need to step up here. We're going to need to get camp set up. We're going to need to get dinner going. We got to get stuff up so that it's available and so that our mom and pa don't have to worry about that. It was worrisome because we didn't know what the effects of that were going to be. We didn't know if he was going to come back, if he was not going to be able to help, or even if he wasn't going to be able to finish trek.
Later on, getting up there to the camp and seeing one of the other dads go down, feeling what I was feeling, I'm sure he was feeling the same thing, because you wanted to work for your family to help get them there. So you're just using every bit of energy you have, and it was just made it really real.
It's kind of tough in a family when the pa goes down. And there was a few families where the pa's actually had some heat exhaustion and some dehydration. And it was amazing to see how the families truly became families and took over. And all the youth kind of pitched in even more. Miracles happened along the trail through the power of the priesthood. And that was fantastic to see and participate in.
Sister Bay came up to us and she said, do you want your feet washed? And we're like, heck yeah. So then she said, tell your sisters and your mom. Yeah, we got to sit there, and she washed our feet. She just talked to us. And she said the reason she did it is because Jesus washed his disciples' feet because he loved them and she loved us.
I thought that was one of the best things that we could have had right there, because our feet were hurting and they were hot and sweaty, and she just sat us down and she's like, take off your shoes, I'm gonna wash your feet for you. And I thought that was amazing.
I would say spirits were, if anything, a little higher. We had, really bonded, gotten to know each other. We were working really well as a team. Dinner was, all the girls were working together on dinner, and all the guys went and set up our shelter. I mean, we were really working as a team that night.
was scary because the clouds were so dark, and it was, we thought we were gonna get poured on.
Yeah.
Us and a couple other families had like teamed up, and we put all our cars together, and we went against this barbed wire fence, and we pulled tarps from the end of the handcart, because we had to tilt it up like this, and we put from the end of the handcart to the fence, and so we were all protected, and then we had some more tarps against the fence, so we were ready. I was dry.
Again, our youth, fantastic, absolutely amazing in what they can do. Sometimes I don't think we give them enough credit, but they always step it up. They always step it up.
It's Thursday.
It's Thursday. On Thursday morning, we woke up and realized our company members had gotten soaked, so we dried her off and left for the day.
We pulled our hand carts maybe 50 yards, and then they had to stop for another vignette.
Jens and Elsie were a couple who were traveling on the plains, and it got really cold, and so Jens' legs froze, and Elsie had to pull him the rest of the way.
In my full physical state of having sleep and having strength, maybe there's a possibility I can do this, but this is way harder than it even appears to be. For some reason, the handcart was right in some sand, and so to even get enough traction, if I could have just moved it 2 inches, I think I could have gone a little bit, but I couldn't get enough traction.
I was a part of that. I was one of the helping angels, and so I felt that it was really difficult to, because we were standing there, she can't take a step, and so we were just like, do we go in? Do we wait a little longer?
Just seeing she couldn't even take a step, and then seeing the angels come along and start pulling along with her, and just knowing that the help from heaven can be real. That was definitely one of the more spiritual moments of the trek. I don't think there were any dry eyes in the entire group watching, and maybe even some of the people acting it out.
That really got me to understand a lot more about our Heavenly Father and what He has to go through watching us struggle, because He has to wait for us to not be able to go anymore before He can help out. But He's so glad when He can.
Actually seeing Sister Peterson and her husband, obviously the different heights of them, him struggle, and then she can't even, really struggling. Putting that in perspective and realizing that she did that for so long by herself made me have a greater appreciation knowing that angels were round about to help her.
That vignette showed us that we have angels pulling the handcarts with us, whether we have our brothers or our dads or our husbands in the cart or not. That vignette showed the strength that Heavenly Father gives us.
I can kiss away the pain.
I will stand by you forever. You take my breath. Ow! From there, we just kept pulling all the way around the mountain until we got to the women's pole.
Excited, but we were also kind of nervous, like, oh no, this is gonna be the women's bowl. Oh yay, women's bowl. Oh no, wait.
Being one of the oldest girls, second time around doing the women's poll, we had experienced it, so we're just looking around to the younger girls and just telling them, you can do it. We did it, and so can you.
I was walking with trail boss Knapp, and it's like we were going up and we were on the trail, and it's like every turn we go around, he would give out a little bit of a gasp because there's so much of it. It's just so long, it's so uphill.
And the trail kept going, and it kept going, and it was a lot longer and a lot steeper than I had ever thought. As we kept going up the trail, I became more and more concerned. How are they going to get all these hand carts up there?
And so the couple guys like, what? Why did they make such a big deal about the women's pool last time? This is nothing. And we turned around this corner, and it just keeps on, the hill just keeps on going and going and going, and there's no respite, there's no flat places until you get to the top.
This is hard to walk up, much less pull carts up.
I got tired of walking up the hill, and I was just thinking in my head, I was like, oh, how are the girls gonna push this up the hill if I'm tired walking up the hill?
Just looking back and seeing just a tiny little group of people that's all of our women was pretty crazy.
But as we got up there and we came to kind of the last little straightaway, I looked down and you could see where they were all gathered together down below. And I stopped there for a minute. And I looked down and had this overwhelming sense of peace come over me. But yeah, they're gonna be able to do it. They'll be just fine. And from then on, I didn't doubt.
I think the girls were ready for it. I knew that my girls in my family would be fine because they had been pushing and pulling for 2.5 days already, and I knew that they could do it.
I thought it was going to be like all the girls in your family all just pull it up by yourself. It's like, we've got 3 girls that can do that, and our mom.
Oh, wait. We could help each other. We don't have to do this in our own families, which that's what, we thought.
We had a plan, and because we had a plan, I think it made it a lot easier to make it up this hill as fast as we did.
We were going to move 3 to 4 carts at a time, and people would just keep going back and picking up more carts. And so that would give people breaks, so we'd be able to make it up there without anyone getting hurt.
At women's pole, I was going up the hill, and I turned, and there were 2 girls pushing Aaron in a respite vehicle, and they were bringing him up the hill.
Some of his sisters in our family went and asked the stake if, instead of him being driven up, if they could push and pull him up in the rickshaw, because they felt like they didn't want to leave him behind.
And I said, carry on.
I just thought it was neat that they even thought of it.
He was their brother. They weren't going to let him go up in a car. They were going to take him up there. They didn't care how steep the hill was.
it was hot and these carts are heavy, and I was so surprised. I was like, this is really hard. Oh, this is tough. I can't see how they did this without food for like 3,000 miles. Many of the girls were saying, I really felt like there were angels helping us push this, because like we said, we couldn't do it on our own.
It was kind of hard because it was getting right before the giant hill, and then we're like, okay, this is hard, let's sing a song to make it go by faster. So we were singing a child's prayer and I am a child of God, and I love to see the temple.
There was a lot of anticipation as we waited, and hoping and waiting for those first carts to come up.
You know, there was this fence, like we had been told at the top of the hill there's this fence, and they said, until the entire handcart crosses this fence, you can't do anything to help. And there were guys just standing at the very, very edge of the fence, just waiting for the exact moment that they could take over.
Our Pa, he took all 4 of us brothers aside and we talked about our baptismal covenants and how we promised to mourn with those that mourn and comfort those that stand in need of comfort, and how even though we couldn't go down and help our sisters and we couldn't necessarily feel the exact same pain and suffering that they were, we were also feeling pain and suffering, and we felt bad for them. And so that was kind of part of our baptismal covenant, was being able to feel that way.
People came skipping down the hill, ready to do more carts, and I'm just like, that is so great.
The first cart, I think I knew just about everyone on the cart, and Natalie Peterson, my sister, was one of the people on there. Even though her feet were killing her, she was one of the people who probably impacted me the most on that trek. She was just amazing. She was on the first cart up, pulling it up, and then went back down to go help more people. It was crazy.
But the girls worked together so well, and it went so quickly. It was amazing how quickly it went. To me, it was seeing the girls and how they were surprised with how much they did. They couldn't believe that they had done this. And if we can do this, we can do anything.
I learned that we can do hard things. And even though we're women, that doesn't mean we're any less strong or less capable.
The weakness of a woman is just completely false.
It gave me more of an appreciation for the young women, just what they could really do.
I saw her pushing that handcart when she came up to the top better than I'd seen her move, or working harder than I think I'd seen her do in a long time, and I'm like, she's got this. I don't have to worry about her.
The women's pole for me was just a testament to women. I mean, they are strong, and united they can do anything.
It's just the strength that I saw in my girls from my ward, from the rest of the girls in the stake. It's like we worked as one. We weren't girls from different wards. We weren't strangers. We were one. We were sisters pulling all these carts up together.
I was truly amazed at how quickly they did it. They worked together, they planned, they thought out, they organized. It was very meaningful to be able to see that happen, to be able to watch them work in unity. all together, taking it in a staged operation. And it wasn't that it was easier, especially for those who compared to 40 years ago. It wasn't easier. The task didn't change. It's that they did it in a smarter way. And they came up unified. They came up together. It really built a sense of unity within the women of our state. They did it, and they did it well.
After the women's pull, we sat up on the hill to eat lunch. And off in the distance, we saw that there was a storm brewing.
Fun, tiring, fun, hard, fun. Oh, did I mention really, really fun? But hard at the same time. It was really hard.
Time for a stick pull.
Go.
It's my favorite olden days sport, stick pull. I love it.
There are two people on the ends of the sticks, and your feet are up against it, and you have to try to pull the other person on top of you. And my friend actually beat one of the young men, and that was pretty cool.
Are you good? 3, 2, 1, go! Next. She's got a big beat. Come on. Go! Go! Come on, Tanner. 3, 2, 1, go.
I think they were excited. They felt accomplished. They were wondering how quickly we could get back to base camp. Where exactly is the trail that we're going to take? How are we going to get back there? How long is it going to take us to get back there? Everyone was excited. There was a big sense of enthusiasm there because the next big step was back to base camp.
When we're coming back and going to Zion, all the sand, that was very hard to push the handcart through. It was hard.
So we were just putting our bandanas over our whole face so that we wouldn't get dust in our eyes.
Grabbing on, and we didn't have an extra rope. We were just all holding on to the front of it and backing it down. And we were like kind of jogging, like coughing and rubbing our eyes, had like our eyes closed, hacking and spitting the whole way down. And you're like running and trying to hold it back. It was it was like the worst hill in the whole thing right there.
We ate a lot of dust.
Everyone was like yelling out, "Oh yeah, pull back," and we were like, "We are pulling back and this isn't working."
We got out wet wipes at that, just after the little sandy hill, and it was amazing. We would just wipe half of our face and you could see a very good line right where the dirt ended and started, and it was just disgusting.
We're finally back. We're almost there. You know, we can do this.
Before we got to base camp, Mackenzie was hyperventilating and she had a panic attack. She didn't want to sit down. She didn't want to do anything but pull because we were so close. And she was like, "I'm not tired. I don't want to sit down." And so we're like, "Mackenzie, you need to sit down." I was scared to death because this has never happened. Like, I've never seen this happen to somebody. President Knapp gave her a priesthood blessing, and that was seriously, the spirit was so strong. Everybody was crying. There were angels helping us, because when we first started pulling after that priesthood blessing, we were barely touching the cart, and Ryan or Zach were like, "There's angels helping us right now."
We started out together, and we were going to finish it together.
Trail boss Knapp, he came around that bend and he finally told us, "All right, let's go." And so we started walking in.
Started to rain on everybody, but no one really cared if it was raining. No one cared at all.
It was really nice to know that we had gotten through it, that we had been able to put all our stuff in these handcarts, took them the whole way, and that we had completed it. And that really gave a sense of meaning to the whole experience.
You know, I'm walking in with Abigail because she's not really allowed to touch the cart as much as from before. And I wrapped my arm around her. I'm like, "We did it. We did it." I was about ended it right there, walking in.
The feeling of relief that I had walking in was a lot greater than last time, when it was just kind of like, "Oh look, we're here, yay." This time it was a lot more meaningful to me.
I really feel like the kids worked really hard for that moment, and I think that's what made it so special.
It was kind of disappointing not to be able to help push the cart in. I guess every time I've thought of the pioneers and read about them, I always thought if I was there, I'd be one of the strong ones pushing and pulling all the way in. But but to be able to walk there and realize that we had made it, but it also gave me some thoughts of those that were injured along the trail that couldn't help, that had to be pulled in, that had to give me appreciation and realizing that they didn't choose to be that way.
And it was great to be able to stand there and see each family as they walked into base camp and how bonded and unified they were as a family. Some of them chanting their family slogans or songs, but all of them still working together.
Trailblazers came into Zion, and it was really awesome because everyone was just kind of lined up and they were all cheering for them. And Colton came in and people were like pushing him and he was just smiling and it was so cute.
Katie was another one, and especially coming into Zion, when we're cheering for her and she's kind of, it's like, yeah, this is for me. As she's walking in, that was cool.
Everyone just laid down in the grass and a few of us fell asleep. You could hear Paul snoring.
And it was just like, oh my gosh, we're here. We get to sleep on grass. And there will be ants on us. It's awesome.
Incredible. There was grass and there were trees and it was green. And that was just amazing. And we got to walk barefoot all over. It was amazing.
It was nice to see them be able to just sit around, and I love that the family didn't just disperse to their friends. They still stayed together, and we still, it was, the kids wanted to be together.
After resting a bit in Zion, it was time for a huge chicken dinner and some square dancing.
And root beer floats too. Can't forget about those.
When I was 12, I was like terrified of girls and confrontations and asking them to dance and everything. And so this time, someone was just like, hey, grab Raina right there, she's sitting by you, and come dance. And I was like, do you want to go? And she's like, yeah, sure. So I hopped up, and that was a blast.
Finished it off with a testimony meeting.
When we had testimony meeting, Colton was happy and he was smiling and he was, you could hear him and he was trying to talk, and I thought that just really touched my heart.
One of my close leaders, Kristen Moss, we're going up the hill we're just hand in hand, we're thinking, and she asked me, why are you doing this? Why did the pioneers do this? And the question has stuck with me ever since. Like, why did we come on trek? Why did the pioneers do this? And all I can think of is because he loves me and I love him.
You can know that you're not alone, that God is with you always, and that he's helping you with those like hand carts of life where you have to pull all this stuff, and he's always with you, and that helped me strengthen my testimony and my especially my perspective on the pioneers.
You can do everything. You can study it, you can go to the historical sites, but you really have to do some kind of reenactment where you actually are out on the trail. You camp for a couple nights or something. You really need to do what the trek is before you can even have close to an understanding of what they went through.
So when I think of the handcart pioneers, how Heavenly Father could have provided big miracles where they would have been just fine. He could have tempered the weather, he could have given them a herd of buffalo to eat. He could have done a lot of things for them. And there were little miracles here and there along the trail, but the way those handcart saints were saved was through a rescue party. So it was through the hands of other people that Heavenly Father was able to rescue the saints. And I thought that was really neat, that even though Heavenly Father will put us through these tests and trials, a lot of times he's not going to directly step in, but a lot of times it will be through the hands of others that we will be rescued.
Service was rendered along trek. That's what I'll remember. The service that was performed and the great joy that people got out of performing that service.
Everybody was just unified for those 3 days.
God was with us. I feel he was with us there. Helping, because it wasn't us taking a step, but every step we took, we were closer to our goal. And we couldn't have done it, and the pioneers couldn't have done it without help.
I was amazed at our youth. I was amazed at the quality of our youth, the abilities of our youth, their positive attitudes, their can-do and will-do attitude. They never gave up. They were determined to complete it and determined to go through it and to learn the most that they could through and about trek. And they did it. And they did it well.
And when I hear the love that they have for each other, for the gospel, for Christ, that's really the takeaway. That's the heart of it.
It's just kind of all about trailblazing and being a trailblazer, either spiritually or physically.
When life knocks you down 7 times, you gotta stand up 8. Because you don't know what's on the other side of that hill. But from trek, after climbing those hills, and the first night, the big hill, what's on this other side of that hill? It's something good. It's something great.
I can trek. I can do anything.
So in the end, it all comes down to Trailblazers.
And the person that I want to be feels just out of my reach. He whispers to me that I do not need to do it alone. 'Cause in the strength of the Lord, I can do all things. He knows how to change the weakness in me. So I will let His love lift me up. He believes I can do hard things if I will trust Him and walk forward in the strength of the Lord. He promised me there would never be anything that I could not overcome. His power is more than enough. I know that if He is standing with me, I can conquer everything. He offered His life so He could be by my side every day. In the strength of the Lord, I can do all things. He knows how to change the weakness in me. So I will let His love lift me up. He believes I can do hard things if I will trust Him and walk forward in the strength of the Lord.
Oh, man.
Cold enough?
Yeah,
Is it wet enough?
that was cool.
I had one family in particular that I was really concerned of, because they were small guys. So I was concerned there because when we took off, I had them, the fourth in my family, and they were getting further and further behind.
My husband had just been medically released just to hike with us the Monday before trek, so he couldn't do any pushing. He wasn't allowed to do pushing or pulling. So I was like, I think our heaviest kid was 120 pounds. So, I mean, we were like, oh, a little worried about how that was gonna go.
I really had severe concerns thinking this is gonna be a long trek and this is gonna be a long haul for these. And I said, but just think about those pioneers. They didn't get to choose what size kids they had. They had to work with what they had.
It didn't matter that they didn't weigh a lot. They had the heart and the gumption to just go.
I was walking behind the cart, and, you know, I'm just thinking to myself, oh, something's going to happen. I'm going to have to help. I'm going to be able to push the cart just for a little bit. And I go, and we hit the sandy hill. Car kind of stopped, and it started to slide back because it slipped in the sand. I'm like, crud, what am I going to do? I went to touch the cart, and the wind picked up, and it blew my hat off. And so I had to stop, turn around, pick up my hat, and I go, okay, Lord, I understand. I'm not supposed to touch the cart. I'm not going to touch it. You'll blow my hat off. I understand. There's those little messages in life that, you know, you just kind of have to listen to.
I had 4 toes on one foot and 3 on the other that ended up having to be duct taped. And in the end, I could run back and forth in the trail. I was totally fine. I had no problem.
It was pretty amazing how people would ask for priesthood blessings, how they demonstrated their faith, even through an exercise such as trek. They knew that our Heavenly Father would be there for them. And priesthood blessings were given and received. And it was amazing what happened.
When we got to the top, there was a young lady who the heat was getting to her. What was cool about that is that her brother had just recently been ordained an elder, and to see him exercising that priesthood along with his father and blessing his sister, that was cool. Even in the setting that we were off, they just went off a little ways and performed that. We just pull up a bucket out away from the rest, and it was a very sweet spirit as her pa took care of that ordinance. I was grateful to be a part of that. No matter where you're at, you need to be worthy and prepared to exercise your priesthood, that priesthood power on behalf of whoever is needing it.
Miracles happened along the trail through the power of the priesthood, and that was fantastic to see and participate in.
The cook committee was working under some difficulty. And so one of the decisions we made was not to drag our barbecuing things there, that we were going to use what they had there. And they were a little disappointed. And when we got there, there was this amazing barbecue sitting there, huge barbecue. And they said, I wonder if we could use that. And I said, chances are there is somebody here, somebody rented this and the rental agency is going to come and pick it up. And they said, yeah, you're probably right. And so on Monday morning, sure enough, a truck came and started to get ready to pick it up. And the lady got out and we all admired her barbecue and we said, there isn't a way we could rent this, could we? And she said, no, I don't think so. But you could borrow it if you wanted to. And turns out she was willing to let us have it for the whole week. And it was our little cook miracle. It was hers, and she let us have it for the whole week. And they came later and picked it up from us on Friday.
What was funny about that is in the morning, Bill Weeks he was another captain, he did not get a lot of sleep. And it reminded me of kids when they're overtired and they get the giggles and the goofiness. That was hilarious. We would sit in the back like we're the goof-offs in the class, and we're just laughing at stuff. And I'm laughing because he's laughing, and he can't seem to get things together because mentally he's fatigued, he's tired. So it was just the hee-hees of making light of it was enjoyable for me.
Abby was hurting. She was hurting real bad. I didn't know because I was I was holding the rope up. And she made it to the top of the hill. She walked up with the cart. She'd been pushing the whole day, and it had been hot. And it's the first really physical exertion she's done since her back surgery. And she was. I didn't know if I would have gone to her. I would have dropped everything I was doing. But she was shaking. And I didn't know she was hurting so bad. And they ended up giving her a Percocet. And she was good after that. We were on top of her pain meds, but she's not one to say when she's hurting. I mean, she could have been hurting the whole day, and she wouldn't have said. The doctors that gave her the surgery said it's one of the most painful things anybody could go through in life. And she did it. She never complained, not once, not out loud. And we always tease each other, if we're kind of not at each other's throats, but bugging each other a little bit, and it's kind of good-natured fun. But she's like, "Oh, Tyrel, if you keep on doing that, I'm gonna kick you in the knee." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll take it." You ask me one more time how I'm doing, I'm gonna kick you in the knee. I'm gonna keep on asking you. It's a given.
Our ma told us this story about how, I think it was her grandfather had lived in Salt Lake, and so he and his buddies would sit on the curb by where the trolley stops would be, and so when the women would get down, they'd lift up their skirts and it would show their ankles, and that was scandalous to see a woman's ankle. And so he would sit there with his buddies, and so she told us that story. And so then from that moment on, Ian would look for people's ankles and look for girls' ankles. And so he lifted up one of our sister's skirts to look at her ankle. And so we're like, "No, Ian, you can't do that. That's not okay." And so then when we were back at base camp, Sister Bay had the little circle of chairs to wash the women's feet. And so there was an empty chair. And so I was sitting while we were waiting for dinner. We just kind of sat down on the grass, and so he snuck over and asked if he could sit in one of the seats. And so we just kind of sat there for a minute, and so he turns to us and he mouths, "Guys, ankles," and points to all the bare ankles, and we were just like, "Ian, dang it."
So here we are, we're getting everything loaded up. That's going to be going, the crittles are going to be pulling the trailer out and head up early. So Jacob comes to drop off his bucket, and he's got his coat resting on his head like a Superman cape. And his dad comes up and says, "Hey, just want to check. They say he's supposed to bring a coat." And with all assurance, I said, "No, don't worry about it. You just leave it home. It's just extra stuff he's going to have to load. Listen, none of my kids are bringing it. I'm not bringing it." So I think it was either the third or fourth day we're at base camp, and Jacob happens to see me, and he comes straight at me because it's starting to rain, and he says, You said I wasn't supposed to bring my jacket." I said, "Well, Jacob, we're all in the same boat. It's all good."
We made cobbler on the second night, and ours
we had the heat turned all the way up and we burnt it really bad. Like the peach juice on the bottom and the peaches was one black layer like this thick, and the inside was just nasty. And we all, the funniest thing was we all went like, it doesn't look too bad. And we took a big bite out of it like at the same time. And we were like gagging and choking. And then one of my sisters, Mercedes, she broke off a chunk of the black stuff on the bottom. And she's like, what do you guys give me if I eat this? And we're like, we won't make you pull till lunch. And so she puts a little teeny piece in her mouth. She's like, I can't even taste it. It's not that bad. And she takes a big bite out of it. And she's like coughing and hacking. And then at one point she was like she's going to throw up. And we were all laughing our heads off. It was so much fun.
Last day at the top of the women's pole, one of the girls in our ward she got hurt. The wagon wheel, the handcart wheel ran over her heel and hurt her, and I needed to transport her back to base camp because she wasn't able to walk. And this is a girl who's been in the church for 3 weeks, and I put her, got her in the car, got her packaged up to take her back down to base camp. And I'm thinking, oh boy, have we ruined her? Is she never gonna want to do anything with us ever again? And she's sitting there in the back seat just bawling, and you can tell she hurts so bad. She's bawling, and then next minute she takes a deep breath, pauses for a minute, and says, do you think I can go back out with everybody else? And that's the kind of thing that, and she's not the only one that's like that. She could feel the spirit of it.
We had a testimony meeting at the end, and that was a wonderful experience for some of the youth to be able to share some of their experiences that they had along the trail. Of course, we had to cut it off because of time. There was one young man who came up after we'd already cut it off, and I felt bad. I had to stand up and say, I'm sorry, we already cut this off. You can share your testimony back in your family. And he said, looked at me straight in the eye, and he said, I have to share my testimony. And I looked at him back and I said, okay, you share your testimony. And as I looked at the line as we were getting through the testimonies and everyone was sharing, he wasn't there anymore. And he had gone back and sat down, and I wanted to make sure that he was still okay. So I sent one of the other youth back to check on him and have him come back up. And he came back up, and he came around, and he looked a little bit sheepish about it. And I remember looking at him and telling him, when the Holy Ghost tells you to do something, you do it. You share your testimony. And he smiled. And he went and got in line and shared his testimony, and it was great. For me, that was very meaningful.